You look up at the moon tonight, the same way humans have for 100,000 years, and some part of you wonders what it would be like to actually stand there. But the real answer is far stranger than floating peacefully across gray dust in a spacesuit. Your body was built for one planet, and the moment you left it, everything about you would start quietly falling apart. Here's what nobody puts in the postcard. Start with the ground itself. Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt, a trained geologist, was one of the last humans to walk on the moon in 1972. Within hours of tracking lunar dust back into the lunar module, he found himself sneezing, his throat swelling, his eyes watering. He called it lunar hay fever. Moon dust isn't like beach sand. It has never been weathered by wind or water, so every grain stays sharp, almost glass-like under a microscope. It clings to everything through static charge, and it doesn't just sit on your skin. It works its way into lung tissue, where researchers have since found it behaves less like dirt and more like asbestos.
So the very ground you'd be walking on is quietly working against you. Now consider gravity. The moon holds you down with about 1/6 the pull of Earth. That sounds thrilling, and for the first few days, it is. You'd bound across the surface with almost no effort. But your body evolved under Earth's full gravity for millions of years, and it doesn't forgive the difference quietly. Your bones, which constantly rebuild themselves in response to the pressure of standing and walking, stop sensing that pressure. NASA's twin study, led with astronaut Scott Kelly, found that even a year in reduced gravity aboard the International Space Station reshaped his bone density, his gene expression, and even the length of structures called telomeres compared to his identical twin who stayed on Earth. On the moon, with weaker gravity for months or years at a time, that bone loss would be a permanent condition of daily life, not a temporary side effect of a mission. Your muscles fare no better. Without Earth's gravity constantly demanding effort just to stand upright, they begin to waste away, a process that starts within days and accelerates the longer you stay.
Here's the part that reframes everything. You might assume the hardest part of living on the moon would be physical, but the psychiatrist Nick Kanas, who spent decades studying astronauts on long-duration missions, found something else entirely. The greatest threat wasn't gravity or radiation, it was isolation. Kanas documented a pattern he called the third quarter phenomenon, a dip in mood and motivation that consistently appeared once a mission passed its halfway point, regardless of the crew, the mission, or the year. The novelty had worn off. The end was still too far away to feel close. And the crew, sealed inside a tiny module with the same handful of people for months, had nowhere to go to be alone. On Earth, isolation has an exit. You can walk outside, call a friend, change your scenery. On the moon, the exit doesn't exist. The habitat is the entire world, and the psychological weight of that confinement builds in a way most people never anticipate until they're already living inside it. And yet, something unexpected happens too.
The space philosopher Frank White interviewed dozens of astronauts and found many of them describing a strikingly similar experience after seeing Earth from a distance for the first time. He called it the overview effect, a profound shift in perspective that comes from watching your entire planet, every person you've ever known, every conflict you've ever worried about, shrink down to a fragile blue marble suspended in black space. Astronauts who experienced it reported feeling less attached to national borders, less consumed by small personal grievances, and a stronger sense of connection to humanity as a single fragile whole. So living on the moon wouldn't just test your body, it would rewire your sense of scale, your sense of what actually matters, whether you were ready for that or not. Radiation adds its own quiet toll. Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field absorb the worst of what space throws at us. The moon has neither.
Without a thick shield of soil or specially engineered habitats, prolonged exposure would raise the risk of long-term cellular damage in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. Then there's the light itself. A lunar day lasts about 14 Earth days of sunlight, followed by 14 Earth days of darkness. Your circadian rhythm, tuned over millions of years to a 24-hour cycle of light and dark, would have no natural signal to follow at all. Sleep researchers studying prolonged darkness on Earth have already found that without consistent light cues, the human body drifts, sleep patterns fragment, mood destabilizes, and the internal clock that governs nearly every hormone in your body begins to lose its rhythm entirely. Compare that to your night tonight.
You'll fall asleep under a sky that rises and sets on schedule, on a planet with a magnetic field silently shielding you, on ground soft enough that you've probably never thought about it once. None of that is a coincidence. It's the product of 4 billion years of a planet slowly becoming livable for something like you. The moon offers no such history. Every hour spent there would be spent fighting.
An environment that was never built for a human body or a human mind, using only what you managed to bring with you. And yet, humans are already planning to go back, and to stay this time, not for days, but for years. Maybe that tells you something more interesting than the danger itself. Your ancestors once looked at the horizon of an unfamiliar continent and walked into it anyway, without knowing what waited on the other side. The instinct to leave the world you know, even when it would rather keep you where you are, might be the oldest human trait of all. So tonight, when you look up at the moon, you're not just looking at a rock in the sky. You're looking at the next place your species is stubborn enough to try surviving in. Dust, silence, darkness, and all.